Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran and I'm a huge fan of interesting class covenant combinations. Of course, there's always going to be a meta. There's always going to be the covenant that's the strongest for every single class and even certain specs. However, I wanted to make another video pointing out 5 more unique covenant combinations, especially with patch 9.05 approaching. Technically, all the covenant combinations we'll be talking about here are either usable in very specific situations or have insanely good sims. With a lot of the different buffs coming out for covenant abilities, whether it be class specific stuff or non-class specific like the flesh gaff for the necrolords, I decided to put together another video for 5 more unique covenant class combinations that I was able to do some research for to find out what is the viability of them and give you guys more opportunities to find different playstyles that you could possibly enjoy in the future, especially with the patch fast approaching. Anyway, let's dive into the video. The first combo is going to be an interesting one and one that is completely uncommon, but potentially in 9.05 it could be pretty good. Enhancement Shamans as Nightface. I know, Venthyr all the way, yes, I agree. But if you're someone who's tired of playing the meta that everybody else is playing and you want to try something new or different, potentially Nightface could be a viable choice. The ability of the Nightface has been kind of weird, but with 9.05 changes, things are improving. In the current sims, a lot of players have Nightface Enhanced Shamans running the Wolf Bones Legendary, which makes it when you build up Maelstrom charges, you actually reduce the cooldown of your Ghost Wolves. This gives you an interesting playstyle together with Elemental Blast, Hot Hand, Elemental Spirits, which also reduces the cooldown of your Wolves, together with the Nightface Covenant huge mastery buff, which buffs all your elemental damage. You basically have an elemental overlord on your hands, together creating with the Nightface a unique combination that you don't really see all that often. While sims are good, it's always a question of practicality of this build, and on my Shaman sim in this, actually the numbers are looking really good. It could also give you a potential change to playstyle. I know all of us are running the Wind Fury totem, but if you've been playing for Shaman for quite a bit, you might want to branch out to more talents, and there's so many different combos that Shamans have, and so much opportunity that just hasn't been discovered yet. Plus, the Nightface Shaman has gotten quite buffed in terms of the playstyle and how it works and in terms of the damage. It didn't change too drastically, but they are making it a little bit better for enhancements, so potentially there could be a viability, maybe not now, but maybe in 9.05 for a future enhancement Nightface Shamans. The next build on this list is going to be Assassination Rogues as Venthyr. Now this one is more inclined to 9.05, but technically there are some sims. For all the rogues, I feel like everybody's either Kyrian or Nightface, so it's really easy to see some really good builds like an Outlaw rogue as a Necrolord when they do Mythic Pluses, which we covered in the last video. But Assassination Rogues as Venthyr, I feel like there's a lot of potential. First of all, Venthyr ability in 9.05 will do far more damage, especially during Vendetta, which is going to be big value. So there's a lot of opportunity for this in 9.05 after Assassination gets a bit of a rework and the Venthyr ability goes better. But even before the rework, based on the sims, for Assassination, the Venthyr Covenant brings you a haste buff. In Assassination, you are a gobbler for haste, you can't get enough of it. Whether it is you running the Nagia Soulbind, which is the first Soulbind you unlock that grants you haste periodically, or using the Flagellation ability, and again going to be much better in 9.05, also granting you haste. But you can also do extra things like become even deadlier. As Assassination Rogues, you mark your target with a Vendetta, but you can also pick up the Dauntless Duelist setup where you mark an enemy and you become their adversary, doing 3% more damage on top of all that Vendetta damage. Plus, Assassination only have one Shadow Step in comparison to the other rogue specs, and having that extra teleport for Venthyr doesn't seem like a bad idea. This one doesn't have the worst sims, but I expect for this one to become way better once 9.05 is released. Next combination is going to be kind of weird. It's going to be more Nightface, but for Fury warriors. How can you imagine a furious, just roided out warrior full of muscle and strength, but also being a Nightface fairy at the same time? But yes, Nightface warriors apparently are a thing and could be a thing going forward. The ability for the Nightface with the mastery buff that it provides is huge amounts of damage in AoE. You also get more mobility as a Nightface, and I've always said this, I feel like when it comes to Covenant abilities, more mobility is almost never a bad thing. You can almost never have enough mobility on any character. The Nightface first Soulbind grants you so much mastery whenever you use your ability is just a ton. Mastery is one of your best stats. It simply just makes you hit harder. But I feel like if you guys watch the 5v5 1v1 duels regularly, I don't really need to convince you too much that Nightface Warrior could potentially be good, because of how often we see Nightface Warriors just slamming and obliterating players inside of the duels playing Nightface. The Aftershock ability is quite amazing in terms of the AoE. The knockdown effect can be definitely very, very unique, and the interesting setup you have with the soul binds like Corrin, for example, allows Fury Warriors some crazy amount of critical strike when it comes to multiple packs of enemies, which delivers a ton of damage, a ton of consistency, which Fury Warrior is really all about, is that consistent cleave AoE damage. So while it might not be a strong option when pure single target, as the Venthyr Condemn is going to continue dominating, the Nightface Warrior could potentially be a viable choice for any of you that are mostly sitting inside of Mythic Pluses and mostly want to do big AoE damies. The Frost Death Knight of Venthyr is actually a kind of a decent choice. In fact, for Death Knights, I would say none of the Covenants are really bad. Because of the playstyle changes for your Frost DK, you can either play with dual wield playstyle or two-hand playstyle, and you emphasize different aspects of your gameplay. One of them is going to be based on physical damage, making sure that Obliterate hits as hard as it can, and then Obliterate converts into frost damage, allowing any of your abilities that beef up more Obliterates, allowing you big chunky hits and crits out of your enemies. Then there's a dual wield playstyle that actually uses your runic power and really feeds for your runic power more than anything. And in fact, there's basically a bunch of different builds between those two playstyles or weapon styles, and 4 different covenants and so many different situations where one or another could be insanely good. So for Frost Death Knights, none of the covenants are really bad, but the one I wanted to highlight here would be the Venthyr and Venthyr dual wield playstyle. This is going to be a playstyle that generates a ton of runic power. It also has a pretty short cooldown and synergizes with your cooldowns really well on a minute together with your Pillar of Frost, so you'll have both of those to press at the same time on cooldown every minute. But also the breath damage. The Breath of Citragosa, if you, let's say, are someone who, not like me, tired of the two-hand playstyle, wants to go back to dual wield, which is not really something I am currently leaning towards, but if you want to give your Frost Death Knight a little bit more of a leg up, especially in AoE situations, then this would actually be a viable playstyle right now. Mobility is also another thing that Death Knights don't have, so Nightface, sometimes for some people it's kind of a choice and others not really, but the Venthyr offers you an almost instantaneous teleport. With a short cast time, you're able to reposition your character out of harm's way or in the middle of enemies as you go massacring them in that frosty winter wonderland. Finally, a combination that I thought was kind of interesting is actually going to have a tank on this list. That is going to be the Guardian Druid. All druids play Nightface, let's be honest, and maybe with the changes that 905 brings to some of the other covenants, there could be opportunities. But if you're someone who's playing a lot of Guardian and you're looking for top damage, apparently the Necrolord Covenant is really not that bad. The Necrolord Covenant sends a swarm at enemies, doing a bit of damage, and the swarm will bounce between enemy and you, or enemy and an ally, healing allies, doing damage to enemies, increasing the value of any healing over time or damage over time effects on the target. And as a Guardian Druid, you have quite a bit of dots with Moonfire as well as Thrash. But it also opens up a build for cat weaving, where you actually go into cat form, apply rips and rakes, and increase your overall single target damage. For Bear Druid, this is actually one of the biggest DPS increases for pure single target, and apparently makes it for a decent build if you're looking to just dumpster bosses and do a ton of focus damage. The Swarm could also be used defensively in order to increase your Frenzy regeneration healing, which apparently can be quite high. As a Bear Druid, you're basically impervious to most forms of damage, especially to physical. But with the Fleshcraft ability, which that's getting buffed in 905, but so is the Swarm, by the way, so potentially could be really good for this Covenant's class choice. If you end up playing the Guardian Druid, you can use the Fleshcraft to deal with some of the magic damage. We also will have a DR effect once 905 comes out, but as someone who already deals with physical damage really easily, Fleshcraft just ends up kind of making you even more of a sponge, especially for those magic powerful hits. And that's going to be some of the more unique Covenant combinations that we have so far. A lot of these are just simply going to get enhanced once 905 hits. It's really hard to tell if any of these are going to become the meta, but they do have some opportunities and playstyles currently. I'm always a huge fan of some interesting, weird, and off-meta combinations. I always find it interesting to, well, when players play what they really enjoy, but also finding interesting combinations that nobody else would find unless they tried something new. But thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Let me know your thoughts about this list, and if you would add any others into this list video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, I'll see all of you in another one.